Hey everybody, George the Tech. Setting up a brand new Mac Mini M2 for a client. And a lot of you know that being on the latest macOS can be problematic for some of us. It can cause conflicts, variables, because the system will keep updating the OS over the course of the year that the OS is current. And there are known issues, some of them unpredictable, in certain OSs, such as Sonoma. So currently macOS Sonoma, we have had various annoyances, ranging from the annoying orange mic mode button on the menu bar that doesn't go away and doesn't tell you what mode it's in until you click on it. And that also affects your audio recording quality in a negative way, but also just instability with certain devices and software, namely the Apollo. I've had a few clients on a new current Mac running Sonoma that have problems with the Apollo. That being said, with this brand new Mac, the client on Apollo, I checked to see if this new Mac, which has Sonoma on it, can run Ventura. And thanks to the fact that it's an M2 chip, which I believe has something to do with it, and possibly the manufacturing date, it is indeed Ventura compatible. So how the heck do you put an older OS on a new Mac? Google to the rescue brought me to a Macworld article that walks you through it. This came out in September 2023. So now that I want to go the reverse direction, this article will still be highly helpful. And there are a lot of links and a lot of steps to make this happen. So first you have to get the installer files. So you have to go and grab the installer for the version of OS that you want to run. So scrolling down through the article, you'll see a list of different OSs that they have linked. And each one of these will link back to the App Store. And you would think if you go to the App Store and type in macOS Ventura, you'd be able to find it directly on the App Store. But no, you would be wrong. You can't find it this way. So what you have to do is follow one of these links. The link will take you to the App Store, and then at that point, you can get the OS. That will download the installer. That could take a while because a lot of them are over 12 gigabytes. The installer will download into the least logical place imaginable, and not downloads, but into the applications folder. I have the installer file for Ventura waiting in the install folder. Now this is on a MacBook Air that I use for my day-to-day. The brand new Mac is sitting in the studio waiting to receive this version. Next, we'll go back to our help article. And now we have to create a bootable installer. As you'll see coming up, this maybe is not quite for the faint of heart for someone that can't follow a lot of steps. But it does require a quality USB thumb drive, which, believe it or not, I just ran to the store, CVS, and I bought two USB 3.0 32 gigabyte flash drives, little thumb drives, for $40 for a pair. So I have a spare or a backup in case something goes wrong with one of them. So now I've got the 32 gig drive. That's going to fulfill the need for an external drive that I will put the installer on. But unfortunately, it is not as simple as just dragging and dropping the installer to the drive, because the drive has to be bootable. So these instructions I'm going to show right now are the process to make that drive bootable. So first we plug in the external drives. Then we launch Disk Utility. We look for the drive. In this case, it's called No Name. We're going to select the root drive in the sidebar. So it looks like there is only one drive. There's no sub drives. We have a root drive. Okay. Then we're going to click Erase at the top of the window. We're going to choose GUID partition map for the macOS extended journaled format. And it probably is defaulting to whatever the GUID partition map scheme is, but I'll double check by clicking security options. Okay, we're going to leave it on fastest. Your drive will probably be called Untitled by default. You could give your drive a name, macOS Ventura installer, and click Erase. So it's going to reformat the drive as it came from the factory, which in this case was FAT32, which is compatible with Mac and Windows. And we're going to allow it to complete that process, which it does rather fast. Done. And now we have a drive ready to receive our installer. Now you're ready to make your bootable installer, so we're going to open Terminal. So I'm going to do Command Spacebar to find the Terminal app. It's the easiest way to find almost everything on a Mac. It's much faster than navigating through menus and stuff. And we're going to copy the text that corresponds to the version of macOS you're installing into Terminal. You'll find the text in the section below. Make sure that you use the name you have given your drives. So in this article, they've conveniently listed the command, I should say, that you need to copy and paste into Terminal, but you do need to make sure that the name of the volume is named correctly. So as you can see here, it's just defaulted to my volume. So I have to rename it to, what do we call that drive again? MacOS Ventura installer. I can click on the name here in Disk Utility, copy it, and paste it into Terminal so I don't misspell it. Okay. Copy the line of text. You'll find the text section below. Make sure you use the name given. Click Enter Return. It will ask for your system password. And while you're typing password, it does not reflect that you're typing, so don't panic. It'll say ready to start, and to continue we need to erase the volume macOS Ventura installer. If you wish to continue, hit Y and then press return. And away it goes. If you're wondering why this is so complicated and difficult, it's because Mac, or really I should say Apple, doesn't want you doing this. They don't want you to go backwards. They want you to ever march forward and always be progressing to the newest thing and the latest thing, which they'll convince you is for stability and service and most importantly, security reasons. We know in pro audio and studios, the latest is not always the greatest, and sometimes stability with a system that is proven and working well is the best way to go. And because we're moving from a system running Ventura to a new machine running Ventura, we know stability is there. We already know it's a stable system. And again, based on my experience from my clients and reports from various clients with brand new Macs, Sonoma and the Apollo isn't always playing along very nicely. So this is a lot of extra work to get a new system running for me, but it may be just worth it to prevent future frustrating issues from coming up. So this is going to take a while because it is copying the OS installer, which is already on the machine, to the flash drive. And it's a big installer, like I said, over 12 gig. So this could take some time. So we'll pop back in here as soon as it's finished. Once that copy process has completed, we might as well resize a little bit so we can see it progressing over here. We'll be able to go to step 3 in the article, which is use the USB installer to update your Mac. And once again, beautiful step-by-step instructions. If it's an M1 Mac, meaning the modern Silicon Mac, which is what we're using, you just hold the power button down while it's starting up to take you to the startup manager. Super easy. And that takes you to recovery mode. That part I can't screen record because obviously the system we're working on won't allow me to screen record while it's in recovery mode. So I'll continue to read through this. Once you've gotten into recovery mode, you're going to click on Install macOS and then click Continue. And the version of macOS on the bootable drive should start to install on your Mac. Now, if you want to do a clean install, which means wiping your Mac first, follow the instructions here. It's going to have to do a clean install, most likely, because it's writing over the newer OS with an older OS. We may actually have to do that additional step. Oh, okay, we're 10% over the copy, so that gives us an idea. It might take another 10 minutes. So how to clean install macOS on your Mac. Why would you want to do this? You'd be amazed at how much better a slightly sluggish, buggy, or just ornery Mac will run with a fresh and clean install of the system. If you've got an older system that's a few years or more older, and you would just like to have it feel like it was when you first got it out of the box, clean install is the way to do it. So we'll be following these instructions, that partially Part of what's in the article actually is about making a bootable copy of the macOS installer, which we are doing now. So this article has a lot of explanation as to why you would want to do a clean install and for what reason. It's the ultimate CRUD cleaning process. This is sometimes what we call the nuclear option when it comes to fixing up a system that just doesn't run well. There are many other things to do before this, such as creating a new user account, or just doing a system update, or just doing what they call an erase and restore, which restores your time machine and gives you back all your data. But this process means you absolutely have a brand new, as it came from factory, installed OS of your choice. In our interest, we're looking at an M1 or later Mac, in this case an M2. And then some Macs have a higher level of security based on a chip called the T2 security chip. This was added in 2018, and you'll see a list of computers here that have it. If we're in macOS Ventura and later, and we are, in Ventura System Preferences, so remember, it became System Settings. Here's how to find Erase All Content and Settings in macOS or later. Open System Settings, click General, Transfer or Reset, choose or Erase All Content and Settings. You can also do this via Recovery, but the problem is if I did Recovery, it would try to reinstall Sonoma again, which is not what we want. So what we're going to do is option 3, do a clean install of macOS using a bootable USB drive, which we're making right now. This article is rehashing the steps that we've already done. Now we're ready to install the copy of macOS from the installer drive on our Mac. If you want to do a fresh installation and completely wipe it, it's time to reformat your Mac's startup drive. If you have a recently modern Mac with Monterey or higher, you would be best off wiping your Mac using Erase All Contents. If you're running Catalina or Big Sur, you have 2 volumes. With the 2 different volumes, there's a whole nother article on how to re-wipe a Mac. But in this case, the Mac in question is not running those. I'll read on. But if we're on a computer with Big Sur or later, which we are, we're going to connect the boot drive. We're going to restart the Mac while holding down the Option key, also known as the Alt key, but it actually says Option, and this takes you to Startup Manager. We're going to choose to install the chosen version of macOS from the external drive because it will give us the choices of drives to install from. Select Disk Utility, select your Mac startup disk, probably called Macintosh hard drive, click Erase, wait for the startup disk to be reformatted, go back to the main utilities menu and choose Install macOS, choose your startup drive as the location, and then once installation is complete, you can restore apps and settings from your backup and use them again. Now, the instructions I give just now were referring to the older hardware. If you're on a new M series Silicon Mac, this is the process. Plug in your bootable installer, the one that we're making right here. Turn off the Mac. Press the power button to turn on the Mac, but keep it pressed until you see the startup options window, including your bootable volume. You can now choose the bootable installer volume, click and continue, and the macOS installer should open when it does, follow the on-screen instructions to do a clean install. And there's also instructions here for folks on an Intel Mac, slightly different. This process will take some time, obviously, installing a new system, and then you'll need to go in and selectively restore information to the computer. Whether you're going to do a system migration from your Time Machine backup drive or manually reinstall only the apps you want to use and copy over documents, whatever method you choose, that's the process you're going to have to go through now. And I've done it both ways, and the most recent client of mine who does have problems with her Sonoma-based Mac running an Apollo, I actually chose the absolute safest route, which is reinstall and copy everything over manually, thinking that would be absolutely rock solid. And yet, she's having issues. So that experience teaches me that even though I took the best practices, we're still having issues because probably she's on Sonoma. And that's why I'm going through this incredibly protracted process for this brand new Mac to step it back to Ventura and migrate over the time machine from the other Ventura machine. Okay, so the moment of truth. The thumb drive with the installer is on here. It's plugged into a USB hub to adapt it to USB-C since this is USB-A. Now we're going to hold down the power button in the Mac Mini. Listen to the chime. And continue to hold it until on the monitor it shows the boot up sequence or the boot options for booting into different systems. So let's take a look and see if that's happening. Ooh yeah. Once you see that, you can let go of the power button, choose macOS Ventura installer, and walk through the installation process. Fingers crossed. Oh, okay, here we go. Now we're seeing the Ventura install application loading and running. And we'll just let the system take its time and do what it needs to do. It could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, I don't know, but we will find out after we agree and choose the installation disk where we're installing it. Yeah, I've got the warning, this volume cannot be downgraded because I didn't erase it first. So I'm gonna have to erase that disk before I proceed. So what I'm doing is I've quit out of the installer from up to the top of the menu bar up here. I quit the installer, took me back to the main recovery console menu. I chose disk utility, and I chose the hard drive Macintosh HD, and chose erase. Give it the default name Macintosh hard drive. Don't change anything here. Choose Mac erase. It's going to warn you. It's going to warn you again. And we'll let it go from here and see how things go. Okay, I just heard the Mac restart. I got the Mac restart tone. Let's see what the Mac says now that it has no system on it. Activate Mac. So in order to proceed, we had to activate the Mac first. However, what if we force it to boot off of that installed boot? Let's try that. Let's go ahead and shut her down. And we'll do the power button hold technique again. All right. Holding that down, it's going to scan for that installer disk there. And then we should see it come up here. There it is. And we'll go through the motions again. Now that it's erased, I can't tell you anything about downgrading because there's nothing to downgrade. It's a blank disk. And away it goes. 59 minutes remaining. We'll see you on the other side, folks.
You know how to use VoiceOver. Press Command F5 now to turn it on and set up your Mac.
Okay, it's ready to go. Now I can go through and set up this Mac just like it's a brand new Mac running Ventura. And we'll then proceed on to our time machine migration to get all the data back from the backup system. There you have it, folks. I hope you found this useful. And if you're buying a new Mac and you want to go back in OS, good chance you probably can by following these instructions. This has been George the Tech. If you found this useful, let me know. Come see us at georgethe.tech. Leave comments below about what I did right and maybe what I did wrong and what I could do better. And I'd appreciate it. Your support really matters a lot. Subscribe, like, share, and thank you.
George the Tech.